In this video, I'm going to teach you how to model anything on Blender. Yeah, anything. This is a very beginner-friendly tutorial. So this is how I learned, a person who didn't go to design school, who didn't take any Blender courses. I literally learned everything I know on YouTube. So this is how I learned how to 3D model things on Blender the easy way, the beginner-friendly way, not the very super hard way like a lot of these people are teaching you, okay? So as you can see here, we're going to learn how to make this 3D modeled Nokia phone from the early 2000s. It's giving Chrome, it's giving Paris Hilton, it's giving everything that it needs to give. So you can use this technique to literally model anything. I've modeled phones, I've modeled SpongeBob, I've modeled like shoes. So yeah, if you want to learn how to 3D model anything on Blender, stick by. And by the way, we are going to be using Adobe Illustrator for this. So yeah, so don't come for me in the comments talking about, oh, it's a Blender tutorial. Why you on Adobe Illustrator? Because I use Adobe Illustrator, honey, okay? So yeah. Yeah, stick by. And the haters too. Get my views up. Alrighty, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to get a picture of the phone that we want to model or whatever we want to model on Google. So I just looked up Nokia phone and I got the one that I wanted to model, which was like the Y2K early 2001 because that's the vibe I'm going for. And I just copied and pasted it into my Adobe Illustrator artboard. And then from here, we are going to notice like 3D modeling is all about shapes, right? So how many shapes do we see here? We see some like round ovally shapes for the buttons. We see like a long oblong, I don't know how to say that word, shape for the base of the phone. We see a square shape for the screen. So each individual shape, we're going to trace it with our pen or our curvature tool here on Adobe Illustrator. So the first thing I do is grab my pen or my curvature tool, and I go ahead and start tracing the shapes that I see on the model, because that's the shapes that we're going to use to make the phone on Blender. So I start off with the base, the longest base shape here, and I just start tracing away. And I just make sure that I remove the fill and I just leave the stroke so that I can actually see the shape that I'm tracing more accurately. Okay, so I finished tracing that and I'm adding a fill just so you guys can see the shape of it. As you can see, this is the basic shape of the Nokia phone. And I'm going to grab my direct selection tool, and on each point, sometimes there's this little circle thingy that pops up so you can further adjust the shape. I'm not really sure what that circle thingy is called, but this part is optional. And I'm also going to go back to just the regular pointer tool, and I'm going to right click my mouse and pick simplify, and that'll lessen the number of points that I have within my shape, which I feel like is a lot better for Blender, because sometimes a lot of the vertices in Blender go crazy because you have too many of them and there's too much going on. So the less vertices, the better. And these two things are optional, but I feel like it's a good little tidbit to know, you know? So now that I've did that, this is the exact same procedure that I'm going to do with every other shape that I see here. So, you know, the little plate behind the Nokia logo, the screen, the little buttons. I'm going to trace the heck out of everything with my pen and my curvature tool. Okay, so we've come into a bit of a design problem. Since that silver plate is separate from the base navy blue phone plate, we trace everything so it's gonna look like how it looks in the yellow. All we have to do is highlight those two things that we traced, and then we're gonna go to the Pathfinder. We're gonna go to the Pathfinder section in the properties panel, and we're going to click on exclude, and that should give us the shape that we're looking for. Okay, hopefully that made sense. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the text tool or the type tool. to add in all the text. So like the numbers, the letters, and the Nokia logo. I'm using a font that looks the most similar to me, like the Nokia font, which is this archival black, free for personal use font. And before you even export it, just make sure that all the type that you put into this, you convert it into an outline by right clicking your mouse and creating an outline, and that way it'll be editable in Blender. And the last step on Adobe Illustrator is to export it. So just make sure you go to File, Export, and make sure that it is an SVG. That way you can edit it in Blender. Thank you for reaching the second part of the tutorial, which is the Blender tutorial. If you've made it this far, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and leave in the comments any questions you have regarding this tutorial. So the first thing we're going to do here is import what we just made on Adobe Illustrator by going to File, Import Scalable Vectable Graphic, and it's probably going to be super tiny. So we're just going to highlight everything and press S on our keyboard to make it bigger. And then to rotate its axis 90 degrees, we're going to press RX90 on our keyboard. As you can see, as I rotate it, it's giving very much flat, very much pre-BBL era. So yeah, we're going to bring this thing to life. And as you can see, all the shapes that we've traced in Illustrator are all separate shapes. I'm going to quickly add a plane just so you guys can see this better, because it has a white background, by going to add mesh plane. And then I'm going to highlight everything, and I'm going to right click my mouse and click on set origin, and I'm going to set the origin to geometry. That way my axis is at the center of each object. First thing we're going to do is add extrusions to all of these objects by going to the object data properties, and we're going to go down to geometry, and where it says extrude, we're going to add an extrusion. I'm trying to get more of a realistic-esque type of vibe, so I kind of guesstimated how thick a Nokia phone was, which is like hella thick. So yeah. And a lot of these objects, if your objects are going to have the same material, I would recommend joining them so that it's just a lot less work. So like the buttons are all going to have the same material, so I just joined all the buttons by clicking on all the buttons or highlighting them or pressing shift and clicking all individual button shapes and right clicking my mouse and pressing join or control J on my keyboard, as I am doing now. I also wanted to have the reference image close by so that I can always look at it. So I imported it as I imported the image as a plane by going to add plane, images plane, and I already had it on my computer, and I can't see it right now because I'm not in render preview tabs, but if you just switch to render preview tabs, you'll be able to see it. So now that we've extruded everything, I want to open a separate window and convert it into a shade editor tab so that I can play around with my material and the environment. So I just removed the material for the outermost panel, just so I could have some contrast and see the buttons and stuff. And you notice everything's very flat. So we want to make this a lot better. And the way we do that is by going to sculpt mode. So sculpting things in Blender, you can adjust the smoothness, the puffiness, and all that. And in order to sculpt things in Blender, you're going to have to first select the object you want to sculpt, convert it to a mesh, and then go to the modifier panel within the properties panel, and we're going to have to remesh this. I usually do either voxel or smooth. For this I did voxel, and this number is just really depends on the size of your object. So I think I did 0.004 or something like that. And this is a process that you're going to have to do for every single object that you want to sculpt in sculpt mode. So that's why I said earlier that it's best to just join objects with the same materials, because then it's less work with everything else, so like sculpting and whatnot. And once you remesh everything, and I'm just going to show you real quick, I remeshed this one object and I went to sculpt mode. And within sculpt mode, the main three tools I'll be using is the bulb tool, the inflate tool, and the smooth tool. And you can adjust the radius and the strength at the top left. And you basically just go over your object until it's puffed out and smoothed out to your liking, as you can see here. I usually just go with the inflate tool first, and then I go back in with the smooth tool to smooth out any lumps I see. And this is basically what it ended up looking like after I sculpted it. So yeah, I'm gonna go back and remesh and then bring every object to sculpt mode so that I can do the same thing. After I've done that with every single object I wanted to do it to, I now want to add an environment texture just so that I have something to look at in render preview tab. So I change from object to world, and then I go to add texture, environment texture, and then I just go on my computer and get the environment texture. I get all my environment textures from polyhaven.com, and they're all free. And they do change the look of your object drastically. You can adjust the lighting or the strength of the lighting right there in that node. And now I want to go and play with the colors and all of that, which is like my favorite part as a designer, really. And the first color I always go with is chrome. And by the way, if you go with a chrome color and it looks all fuzzy, all you have to do is click the object, right click your mouse, and press either smooth or auto smooth, and all the pixelation will go away. And you're probably going to have to do that with every object, really, because sculpting it does that to meshes if you don't, use a small enough mesh, but it's an easy fix. So I was trying to go for like a chrome type of situation, as I always do. Like every single one of my tutorials has chrome in it. Like I'm a chrome addict, okay? So yeah, now I'm just playing around with the colors. I'm using simple colors like just metallic colors and like basic colors using specular and the roughness. So yeah, those are the three bars I'm adjusting: metallic, specular, and roughness, just to keep it simple. Okay, so after I've adjusted the colors, I want to add a background. So I go to add images background, and I'm just gonna use, or images plane, sorry. I'm just gonna use a sky background that I used from unsplash.com, and they have a whole bunch of copyright images there that you can use. So yeah, I felt like that went best or contrasted best with the color I chose for the phone, which is pink and chrome. And I'm also, by the way, I'm rendering in cycles, so you can switch from EV to cycles and turn on your GPU if you have one. Now I just want to add some extra lights. So I go to add lights, and you can pick from the various light options here. There's like area lights, spotlights, sunlights. So I adjust it as you'd like, and I went for like a purple and blue type of situation. And by the way, you can adjust the color and the strength of the light by clicking on the light itself, and on that right panel, a light bulb should pop up as a tab, and that's where you can adjust everything. Tab is completely optional. I'm going to add like some sparkles when it renders, so I'm going to go to compositing tab and press on the use node check, and then I'm going to press shift A on my keyboard and type in glare, and then also do that again and type in viewer and connect everything as you see on the screen. And then slide my mouse over to create a new screen, and I'm going to change that tab into an image viewer tab and unclick the background. And that way when we render it, we'll be able to see it on that right tab. And you can adjust the sparkles by adjusting the fade within the glare node. And now you're basically ready to render. Just on the top left, you go to render image. And as you can see, the glare is too much. So I went back to the compositing tab and I adjusted the fade as I said previously. And this was the final result. This concludes our tutorial. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, please like, comment, subscribe, turn your post notifications on so you know when I post next. And thank you for supporting my channel. Once again, I'm on the road to monetization right now. So every form of interaction really matters to me. And yeah, this is how you 3D model anything, including a Y2K Chrome Nokia phone on Blender. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. Basically, like if you're here, if you're listening to me speak right now, you're a real one. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you in the next video.